Maybe.
sort of ahead, right? But actually, tonight I'm really here in the role of Mr. Brandman's editor for Poison Pen Press, so I have a double title, which should be great. Now, I want to thank Diane for bringing this delicious homemade ricotta cake, and this is Rob, the publisher of Poison Pen Press, who's going to bubble. He's going to hand around some of this delicious cake, so please help yourself if you would like a piece. Anyway, welcome, Michael.
Quite nice.
Lovely to have you here. We have flowers too. So, this is not your first published novel, however. Those of you who have read Michael's biography know that you wrote, was it 2 or 3?
Three.
Yeah, you have to use
Am I
it.
on?
You're on. Just hold it up that way.
Okay.
Towards you. Perfect. You're at the wrong end of the camera for you, or the wrong end.
I'll be singing My Way in just a moment.
We'll hear.
Very well. In any case, how did you? I thought it was an interesting thing because you did a number. Was it 9 Jesse Stone movies?
We have to date, Tom Selleck and I have made 9 Jesse Stone movies, 7 of which Bob Parker was alive for, which made the experience even more joyous than I can say. In fact, I'm going to say that Bob, when we made the first Jesse movie, and Bob had given us a manuscript of that particular Jesse Stone. It was the second in the series. It was the first of the movies that we made. But Bob wouldn't look at the movie unfinished. And then he wouldn't look at it until it was on the air. So on the night that it premiered on CBS, at 11 o'clock, it started at 9, 11 o'clock, I get this phone call from Joan Parker, Bob's great wife. And Joan said to me that Bob couldn't talk to me because he was still weeping, because Tom's performance as Jesse Stone was every inch the character that he wrote. And so we've made 9 now, a total of 9, and we are writing the 10th, which we will shoot in Halifax in the spring, and it will premiere on the Hallmark Movies and Mystery Channel in October of next year.
That's so exciting. I love it, the fact that Jesse's going on even without Bob.
I don't mean to interrupt, Barbara.
No,
forgive me. There are so many Jesse Stones.
There are.
There was, of course, Bob's Jesse Stone, which is head and shoulders the best of them all. Then that was followed by Tom's and my Jesse Stone. And when Bob passed away, then the editor, Bob's longtime editor, Christine Pepe, it became her Jesse Stone. I tried to elbow my way into the Chris Pepe version and did three books with her. And then came along Reed Coleman, who is writing them now. So that everyone has a different Jesse Stone. And now I like to think that the movies are the best representation of that character. And it has nothing to do with me, really, except it does, insofar as Tom Selleck is concerned. He's unbelievably good in the part.
Well, I should say quickly that Reed will be here September 17th with his new Jesse Stone, who I have to tell you, sorry Reed, but I will say that while you're here too, drinks way too much. But it's part of his recovery from the terrible events in the last one that he wrote. And, you know, everybody has a different coping mechanism. I won't spoil it by telling you how it comes out, but I have some trouble dealing with that. So it wasn't my favorite Jesse Stone to read. And I kept rooting for him, you know, to kind of get it together. But anyway, Bob wasn't terribly happy with the movie adaptation of The Spencer, right?
Well, Bob's big problem with the Spencers, the series, Spencer for Hire, was that the actor who played Spencer, Robert, help me out, somebody. Urich. Robert Urich never read a single Spencer novel, which really pissed Bob off.
Yeah.
So there was tension between them to begin with. But the series was successful. It ran for however long it ran. But we then, Bob and I made 3 Spencer movies together, and although we loved Joe Mantegna as Spencer. We knew, because Joe had read every word that Bob had ever written, that he understood what the role was that he was playing. And we were lucky enough to get Marcia Gay Harden to play
Susan.
Susan, whom I don't like.
Hey, you're not part of this
I'm
program.
sorry. It's just a character I don't like.
No one likes that character. But we made 3 movies for A&E. We had a great champion there who passed away, and then the first of the movies premiered on the night that John F. Kennedy Jr.'s plane went down.
Oh no! Oh no!
So the ratings were terrible, and we tried to recover with pictures 2 and 3, but they didn't quite bust through.
Well, I really love Bob. He was a very good friend. He was here. We emailed right up to the end together. And I read every word you ever wrote, and I was very happy that you had a good experience with the Jessies for him.
Yeah.
And I was very happy that the Hitch and Cole, he was
because
happy
Robert's very
with that.
good, yeah.
And Robert Knott, who's a real sweetheart, he comes in February. So it's interesting, you know, that these characters, the only one that hasn't survived is Sonny, who Bob had retired.
Yeah.
But the other characters, 4 of them really, Hitch and Cole and Jesse and Spencer, have all lived on without Bob and taken on lives of their own. And actually, I like Reed's Jesse Stone. I just didn't want her to drink so much of the book that was coming out.
I'll tell you Bob's story. Bob was a ham. He wanted to act more than anything. And in the Spencers, he had that opportunity. We cast him to play the role of the spy, Ives, and he prepared for it as though he were an actor's studio actor.
Michael, try to talk into the microphone a little bit.
I'm sorry. Okay. He tried to. He became Ives, and after the movie was over, whenever he called me, he would announce himself as Ives. He was always Ives.
He's so cute. You know, and the Mystery Writers of America made him a Grand Master.
Yeah.
He was here and he announced it that night. Then he smiled at the packed house and he said, "You can just call me Grandmaster Bob." And that's how we called him, you know, right up to the end. Well, one of the reasons that I brought up the Jesse Stones and Robert Parker is that I think it probably shaped the character that you have created here, Buddy Steele, although he's certainly your own and uniquely your own. It must have had some influence writing Parker to start writing yourself.
Well, Bob was a great teacher, and we had written a number of movies together, and so we had. I'm sorry. Is this bad? I should just talk right into it. We had written.
It's better if you do it this way, because
Okay.
if you talk into the top of it, it goes better.
I feel so like Sinatra now.
I know.
What was I talking about? Bob instilled in me his discipline. Bob's discipline was 5 pages a day, 6 days a week. And he was writing, at one point, he was writing 3 different characters, 5 pages a day, 6 days a week. But I found, as Annette knows, that discipline really is what gets you through the process. You've got to face that empty page every day. And that was a challenge that Bob, and also I was fortunate enough to produce a Western that Elmer Leonard wrote called Last Stand at Sabre River, which was the first movie that Tom Selleck and I made together. But out of that, I developed a friendship with Elmer Leonard, who also adhered to that same discipline. And so on the days when I thought, oh God, there's no way that I'm going to do this, I made it my business to do it, and I owe all of that to Bob. And the idea that I would follow him as Jesse Stone, as writing Jesse Stone, was about as foreign to my thinking as it could ever have been. It was Ivan Held at Putnam's who said, "Get the guys who's writing the movies," and I had been writing all the Jesse movies, and so suddenly I'm writing the novels, and it was a brand new career for me at age 112, which
I'm still the oldest person in the room, so you don't get to say
I don't believe you, Barbara.
I actually am. Truly. Tell us a little bit about Freedom, California, because to give Buddy Steele a place to be and to work, you've created this community north of Los Angeles. How do you envision Freedom, California?
Well, much like Santa Barbara, I don't know if any of you have been to Santa Barbara, it's without as much tourism. There are a lot of Hollywood, quote-unquote Hollywood types who have second homes up the coast. And we have friends who had these homes, and you go up for weekends, and there was this conclave of not only show business luminaries, but also the Silicon Valley guys would come down, and they purchased a lot of real estate there. So I always thought that in terms of the layout, in terms of its proximity to the sea and to the mountains, and also West Coast as opposed to Jesse Stone's East Coast. I envisioned it as a kind of a lesser Santa Barbara.
Well, one of the reasons we actually had some discussions about freedom and how it should be, and to make this story work, and in fact future stories work, you had to have some real money in Freedom, California. And so how would you do that? Why would there be serious money in Freedom if it wasn't in Metro Los Angeles? So Santa Barbara kind of naturally comes to mind. Actually, Montecito maybe even more so.
Yeah.
But a community that's navigable and is more rural than Metro LA, but still, and also not very far from Metro LA, because Buddy, it turns out, is actually from the LAPD.
Yes, and Barbara has opened my thinking to Buddy making regular jaunts to LA, and also interacting with members of the LAPD and the LAPD hierarchy that he worked with when he was working in a job that he was really happy in, as opposed to working in the job that he's now working.
So why is he, in fact, in Freedom, California, unhappy in his job as deputy sheriff?
Well, he spent much of his teen years trying to get away from his father, who had been elected sheriff of San Remo County. Is Beth here?
Yes.
She's right over there.
Hi, Beth. San Remo County. And
Beth is our copy editor, death on anything that's incorrect. So we always have to start out by telling Beth what's fictional or what's not. So when she goes looking for it and doesn't find it, she doesn't panic.
There is a freedom. There's a consent.
Yes,
there's a
yes, there is,
census
yes.
area,
Yeah.
remember, in northern.
I knew you'd find that. I lived in fear. But so the old man is the sheriff. His mother, Buddy's mother, has passed away, and his father has remarried to a woman who is the mayor of Freedom. And so this little couple suddenly have become luminaries in San Remo County and in the city of Freedom, and all Buddy wants to do is get away. And he did early on. He went to John Jay School of Criminology in New York, and was hired by the LAPD, where he was first a street cop and then a homicide detective, living the idyllic California life, bachelor, I always say he would much rather hook up than settle down. And he was living a terrific life until he got a call from his father saying that he had been diagnosed with Lou Gehrig's disease, with ALS. And he wanted Buddy to come have his back in San Remo because he knew that this was a death sentence, and he wanted to groom Buddy to be his successor, and maybe even to go farther politically than he, which is everything that Buddy never wanted to do. And so that's why he is where he is.
Which is actually fairly hazardous. Those of us who live in Maricopa County know what it is to have. Well, we know that sheriffs are elected, right? Sometimes convicted of various offenses, but it's not. It's
Not anywhere, not here though.
Well, they're part.
Actually, yeah.
Or detective facetious note?
right. But my point is, it's not a guaranteed future for Buddy because his father can groom him all he wants, but if his father dies, Buddy's still going to have to run for office, and win an election. It's not like being in the LAPD, which in theory, once you get in, you're on a career track until either internal affairs puts you out or whatever happens to you.
Unless you're in a Wombell novel.
Right,
Then you're shot.
or
Then you're good for life.
or you age out like Harry Bosch, who's now working as a. I'm trying to remember if he's
Cold
working.
case.
Yeah, but I think he's working as a volunteer, isn't he?
He's a volunteer.
Yeah.
He has an association with the police department.
Right, within Metro Los
Yeah.
Angeles, which
In the
in fact-
north. In the north area.
Yeah, which is
Yeah.
something we discussed. It's interesting because when somebody is writing a first novel in a series, you actually get to make decisions, and it's too late after you've done that. But you can have discussions about what should Freedom California be. Where should it be, and what kind of community should it be, and what kind of job should everybody have. And then when you go on in the series, you're stuck with those decisions that you made, and so there really needs to be a lot of effort put into it in order for you to go on and as an author and be happy with it. So you've got Buddy Senior in the early stages of ALS, so it's not as though this is going to be an immediate departure. And
There's also been a lot written about a miracle drug that someone has recently discovered that doesn't cure ALS, but which postpones the onset of advanced ALS. And in book 3, I guess now, I've done that now, and he is on this drug which heartens Buddy.
did he resign from? I've forgotten. Did he resign from the LAPD, or is he on some permanent leave of absence?
As far as I know,
We haven't
he
said.
resigned. Yeah.
Well, maybe we shouldn't commit. Just in case. It's an interesting question. So meantime, here's Buddy back in freedom with his family dynamics and so forth. But what instigates the plot in this particular book? We can't talk much about it, but what gets the story, the actual mystery rolling?
Well, at the start, nothing much happens in freedom, and it's a small force, and Buddy shows up for work one morning, and he's sitting in his office with his feet up, looking out the window, which is he's wont to do. It's very humid. There's a storm brewing coming up the Gulf of Mexico and threatening to hit freedom, and he notices a car pull up in front of the station, and a middle-aged woman gets out and looks around, and he watches her do that, and then he hears her come into the station, and his deputy, Johnny Kennerly, shows up in his doorway and says, "This woman is here to see you," and then Buddy wise-mouths with him, and then she comes in and says that she is the nanny to the freedom-based evangelist who is about to have his annual Heart of Our Savior celebration. And while these preparations are going on, his wife has disappeared. And the woman who turns out who is the nanny has shown up because she believes that someone in the evangelist's circle has murdered her. And that's what starts the drama.
So we have another completely dysfunctional family, which is those people engaged in the evangelical movement there. It's interesting how California books seem to attract those kinds of stories.
Yeah.
You know, there are a number of books. In fact, we published one some years ago by Ken Culkin, in which, back in the 20s, what was the name? Do you remember, Annette? The name of a famous and a real one, a woman who was a spiritualist and all.
Amy Semple.
Thank you, Amy Semple, right, McPherson, and had a huge thing going. It was like a cash cow among all of its other things. So that's why I said we needed money and freedom in order, you know, for there to be people that had enough money to be serious contributors to the church and so forth. So we won't tell you more about it. There are other characters that come in and out. There is no Susan, but there is an interesting woman in this book, right? Who is related, in fact, to the evangelist family, part of the evangelist family. But she's escaped to Los Angeles.
Yeah.
Just like Buddy. Right. So she was fun to read about too. Right.
Good.
So that's probably all we have to say about the book. But fortunately, we have other people here who might have comments. Annette, you did some work on this book. You were the principal editor of this book. What would you like to ask him? Want to take the microphone?
No.
No. You're going to stay back there?
I'm going to stay right here.
Okay.
I think the thing that interested me most was that there were con artists that were scamming con artists, that there was this circle going on. And that,
Welcome to LA.
yeah, and that people were caught in that. I thought that that was a very interesting way of handling the money. I liked them being caught that way.
That's a really good point, you know, that because nobody can be conned that isn't slightly greedy or whatever it is. So it was interesting that you could con the con.
That's right, that they didn't
Yeah.
catch it.
Very true. All right, Beth, how about you? You spent a lot of time with this book
I
in your
did.
role, right? Well,
How could
I'm shaking now.
how could be another murder? Who's gonna die next? Is there, it doesn't seem like the setting for another murder. But if you're gonna write another one, then something there has to be a mystery.
Well, actually,
It's so pleasant there.
you don't want murder and freedom, huh? No.
someone does get murdered.
Okay.
You'll see.
Okay.
I think the advantage to a place like Freedom is that people move in and move out.
Right.
It's not Cabot's Cove, you know. So you have a bigger population to work with, but you also have people moving in and out from Los Angeles, moving in and out financially. And there's some interesting things going on in California. I don't know if you all have read about it, but Silicon Valley, the area, I went to Stanford, and I remember my senior class party was hosted by David Packard, who I had never paid any attention to as an undergraduate in 1962. I thought, why does he have this big house? So he's the one that had the party, right? And it was, but anyway, Palo Alto and that whole area was sort of bungalows, and there was money, but all of a sudden it's become unaffordable, that entire area, and so Silicon Valley is moving to Denver. They are transferring employees and creating new headquarters and so forth, with the result that Denver's real estate values are skyrocketing. We also have some here in Phoenix. Remember Sky Song and how skeptical we were about?
Right.
Or not we necessarily, but
Yeah.
there was a lot of skepticism about Sky Song, and it has turned into another, tech center and so forth. So there can be
This
a
in the
lot
face
of.
of the new Apple.
Well, there's
building?
a lot of it's with the university. But anyway, my point is that this community is becoming sort of mobile, with people being transferred in and out and so forth. So again, you could have people in the tech field in Freedom and then transferred somewhere else. You really do have to keep the population moving if it's a relatively small place. If you want to write more than one book in it, I agree with you that, you know, but you just don't want it to be marred by
Yeah,
murder. You just want it to be
But the
beautiful.
thing is, pleasant people can be really twisted. You know, and that's what is part of the fun, is the pleasant cover and then what's behind it.
That's about how I love her. She is really twisted underneath that lovely exterior. So am I. Actually, we had an author, to our enormous sorrow, recently died. Just a lovely man named Fred Ramsey, who had been in the military. He'd been, and still is, an ordained minister. He taught all these wonderful things, and I was asked to speak at his memorial, at his funeral service, and I really sort of blew away the audience by saying that if none of his other vocations had worked out, Fred could have been a career criminal. And it's true, because his mind, underneath all that, he was a natural for fraud. I never had to encourage him to kill anybody. It was really so interesting. I mean, if you met Fred,
Yeah.
you'd never think that he had
Lovely,
written
gentle,
these books,
funny.
you know, beneath it. So there you are too, Michael. Pleasant on the surface, killer underneath, right? Anyone else have a question maybe they'd like to ask? Holly, you were just there as production, so, but I don't know if you had a chance to read the book.
But
You did
I
the
read
cover.
the first couple of chapters just to get the setting,
Right?
so that I could find art.
And I like the cover very much too.
Holly did a beautiful job on that cover.
Yeah, I
It's
like
just
it.
beautiful. But I let me just say that the opportunity to work with the staff at Poison Pen Press is one of the honors of my life. I admire and cherish everyone that I worked with. The contributions that everyone made were invaluable. Raj and Diane's support and Holly's artwork and Annette and Barbara are like angels from another place. And
Or
and,
devils.
and Beth
Yeah, I was
keeping-
going to say, then there's Beth.
and Beth keeps me honest.
Your side.
And all under the guidance of Mr. Rosenwald over there, who is really an amazing person.
Who passes around ricotta cake, right? That's his principal role as the cook, right?
Yes,
Well,
yes.
So I thank you all.
And to manage you, of course, dear.
Yeah. Which is a full-time job.
bound to lose. But nonetheless, there we are. I'm sorry, did you have your hand up?
Yeah, I'm that fellow's wife,
Right.
and I have to tell you, he is a very experienced producer. He's done an enormous amount of work as a film producer. But in this new job, this writing of novels, he is the happiest man on the planet. He goes to work every morning, 6:30 in the morning. I get up, and he is sitting in his chair in front of that computer, and he works until lunch, and then he comes down, has a little lunch, and goes back to work. And he loves all of you. You have made him very, very happy. It's a very exciting thing to be the person who is the artist,
Yep.
because he has always been the producer. And in this situation, he's the artist. And it's a very nice thing to see what's happening to you.
Well, that's very kind of you to say
Thank
so.
you.
Thank you very much. It is an interesting thing to move from writing books to writing scripts, but it's an equally interesting and challenging thing to move from writing scripts to writing books. I say that as a person who spent a lot of time with Stephen Cannell, who was here often. And in fact, I was going to point out a book that you all might be interested in on Sunday. Sorry?
I said, everyone you're talking about is dead. It's really sad.
Stephen. Yeah,
Canal,
I know.
even Robert York. I mean,
It happens.
I know.
This one's alive, however. Did you ever run across Matt Goldman?
No, I didn't.
Matt Goldman is an Emmy Award-winning television writer, and he too decided to write a novel. So he will be here Sunday, and he has written a private eye novel set not in a fictional place, but in Minneapolis. And I really love, you'll love this. The basic premise is that for various reasons, he's called to a crime scene. A woman has been murdered in her bedroom, and the murderer has emptied 50 vacuum cleaner bags with all the dust over her body. And you might go, oh my God, why? And the answer is that he has destroyed any DNA evidence that might exist. Because it's a principle of forensics that everyone leaves something, behind at a crime scene. And so that's why it's called Gone to Dust, which I think is a great title for it. Yeah. I think it's really intriguing to me to see this go back and forth. And I did an event last spring with Joe Ide and a woman whose name is temporarily escaping me. It was her first novel. Joe had come back. He had written a book called IQ, which was his first novel. Both of them worked in writing rooms for television. She, in fact, worked on Person of Interest. So I finally got to find out what actually happened in person, behind the scenes and all. But what I thought was interesting is that both of them loved the experience of publishing as compared to being in the writer's room in Hollywood. They found it much less stressful. They thought that people they worked with were more helpful, more pleasant. The pace was slower. It wasn't a committee. They could create their own work and all. And I found that fascinating because we spent a lot of time pitching at publishers. So it was like a whole new world to suddenly hear, to hear from them that they enjoyed writing books more than they enjoyed working in the writing room.
Well, if I can quote the great John Gregory Dunn, who was one of the great writers of our time, he said, Hollywood is where the shitheels come for the finals. The experience can be very difficult.
Well, I remember Don Winslow years ago saying he went to a meeting. They were looking at, I think, making a film, which, he's now becoming a film person. But this a long time ago, out of one of his books, that he was in some producer's office, not you obviously, and there was a stack of books on the desk, and just to make conversation, Don said as he was leaving, which of these books did you most enjoy? And the man looked at him and said, I have people who read. So, I don't know that everyone is on the same page, but anyway, there we are. Raj, thank you for all the great work you've done promoting the book, and Diane keeps everybody together. We have everybody here but Susan and Casey, right? So you guys really got an enormous amount of work done with a relatively small staff. So kudos to all of you. Michael, thank you for coming tonight. And thank you, all of you, for coming to join us. There's still a little bit of cake left and extra treats. Michael's going to go over and sit in the big red chair, actually, and we'll be happy to have speakers.